Hello, my name is Sonia, and I'm going to show you another ribbing that I like to use. Here it is right here. And I use this for a hat. And this ribbing is made in rows, but it can easily be incorporated into the round. So this hat was made bottom up, so I made the ribbing first, and then I worked in the round up. So the ribbing was worked in rows, and then the rest of the hat was worked in the round. Alright, so we are going to get started. So I am going to work a chain of 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And the nice thing again with this ribbing is you can determine how wide you want your ribbing, or like in this hat you can see that it's pretty narrow here, but you can I could have certainly made it wider if I wanted to, and you can certainly use whatever yarn you like. This hat was made using fingering weight yarn, so it's a pretty tiny yarn, thinner yarn. And I used, I believe it was a B hook or a 2.25 millimeter hook. For the demonstration, I'm using just regular worsted weight yarn and a G hook or a 4.25 millimeter. So you can certainly, use bulkier yarn, or you can even try it in lace weight if you want to. It's completely up to you. So I've made my chain, and today I'm doing a chain of 7, and we're going to make this ribbing in single crochet and slip stitching. So the first row is going to be single crochet, so we're going to work in the back of the chain. So on all these little bumps, you're going to insert your hook. So your second bump from your hook, work a regular single crochet. So there's 1, and we're going to go to this. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to get your hook in the bump, but we're working in the back for a reason. So number 4, and then 2 more chains. 5 and 6. Alright, so we've worked our first row. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the next row we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn, and we're going to work in the back loops of this row here. So the loop closer to you, this one, is your front loop. The loop farther away, this guy, is your back loop. So we're going to work in the first stitch right here in the back loop. And we're going to work a slip stitch. And again, you want to watch your tension. You don't want it to be too tight when you're slip stitching. So definitely be a little bit more relaxed when you're slip stitching. Most people just think of slip stitch as for the round and as in joining, as in connecting your rounds. But you can use it as a stitch all by itself too, or incorporate it with other stitches to create neat effects. And it just works well with ribbing that I found. So this is 1 row slip stitch, and the next row is going to be worked in back loops only, but it can be a little bit confusing as to where you would need to insert your hook. So you chain 1, you turn, and you're like, oh, there's loops all over the place. So what I like to do is I take my handy stitch marker. I just like to use a scrap piece of yarn, cheap and easy, and I generally recommend a contrasting color. So I would insert my hook in the front loop before I turn and just pop my stitch marker in there. And that's going to help me know where to work. And another trick too as to where to insert your hook is if you have it flat like this, it makes it more confusing. If you turn it up, you can see that it's a row of chains here. So this is the back loop, That's the front loop. But when we turn, we're actually going to be working in these loops. So we're ready to go. I already chained one. I turned, so I've marked my stitch. So we know we're going to work in this stitch right here. We're going to single crochet across. I'm going to take that guy out because I know where I'm going. So we're going to work single crochet in the back loops all the way across. Just like that. And the single crochet row would be considered your right side. So that would be all odd rows. And it's easy to miss the last stitch. It gets a little bunched up in there. So that's why it's important to keep track of your count too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want to have 6 stitches. So it's there. You just kind of have to find it. So that's why it's important to know what your count is, know how to read your work. So that is, you can see it creates a neat little effect there, almost like a knitted ribbing there. And we're going to work the next row, 4th row, in slip stitch. So we chain 1. Now I'm really familiar with this stitch, so I'm not using a stitch marker. But again, if you want to use a stitch marker to mark that stitch, just to give you an idea. And it also helps too to not work like this, to work like that, to really be able to see where you need to insert your hook. It's just a little trick that I found. So you'll just alternate back and forth with single crochet and slip stitch. So as you can see, I've ended on a single crochet row here. So to turn this, let's say we were going to make like a little doll cuff here. So we want to be, and then to work in the round to go up, what you would do is chain 1, turn. Now you're going to bring up, this was your first row that we worked, so the ends of the first row. So you're going to insert your hook into the front loop of that first row. So that's why we worked in the back bump, because it creates its own little, looks like a row of chains, just like here. So you're going to insert your hook into the front loop. So we chain 1, turn, front loop, and then you're going to insert your hook into the back loop of your row that you just worked and work a slip stitch. So you're going to go all the way across. So front loop and back loop. Now you certainly could sew it if you want, but a lot of people don't like to sew, and it just creates more ends to weave in. So I prefer to do it like this, and it almost leaves an invisible seam. I think when you do sew it, it is completely invisible. You can't tell where you started, where you ended. So if you're overly fussy, you might want to sew it. But this is, I think, second best. And our last stitch here. Alright, so we have joined these around. So as you can see, it's pretty invisible. It might look slightly different than the others. So we've created like a nice little cuff. Now when you want to start working in the round, what you do, this is your right side. So what I like to do is usually work a row of single crochet around. And I recommend, so if you were working, let's say you wanted to make stripes, I wouldn't use the next color yet. Just to keep it neat and tidy, I would use the same color to work your single crochet. So I chained 1, so we could work a single crochet right here. And then it just sets up a neater and tidier round for you. And then these little V stitches, I like to insert my hook right in the middle. And it just kind of gives it a nice, neat look. So you can see if you used a different color, you know, it would look a little messy-ish. But when you use the same color, you can't really tell. And then the next row, if, let's say you wanted to make stripes, then I would use the next color. So you would just work your single crochet, however many you would need around, join, and then continue on with working in the round for whatever you were making. So that is one of my ribbing techniques that I like to use a lot. Thank you so much for watching.